What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another ASC YouTube video. And today, well, it is an exciting occasion. NFL playoffs start this weekend, and it's just a miracle that we've even made it this far. They played every single game of the season, and you gotta give kudos to the NFL for that because that is incredible with how much is going on in the world right now. But with that being said, NFL playoffs, we have our seeding set, the matchups are set. I don't want to waste any more of your time because I got a lot to dig into. So let's get started in Wildcard Weekend with the Chicago Bears versus the New Orleans Saints. Now, this matchup actually occurred earlier in the season in Soldier Field, but Nick Foles was the starting quarterback for the Bears at the time, and their offense was not going as well as it is right now. Now, the thing is, the Saints did win that game, but it went to overtime. And it was a really close game, and that was when the Bears weren't at their peak. If you listen to our podcast, you would know that I think this is that the Bears have played such subpar defenses as of late, where their offense, of course, it's going to perform against those teams, and they're making it so easy on Mitch that any competent quarterback can run this offense. And I'm seeing a lot of people, have faith in Trubisky as the future quarterback, and I think they're delusional. I honestly do. I might honestly make a video on that because it's so ridiculous that people think that. But otherwise, they played a competent defense in the Green Bay Packers this past week, and they could not score anything in the red zone. They had 5 trips to the red zone and only got 16 points. That's almost a field goal per trip. That's horrible. And their defense is not at the level that it was playing at earlier in the season. And Roquan Smith might not play. Two of their starting corners might be out for this game as well. It's just not looking that great for Chicago, if you ask me, because the Saints defense, if Green Bay's defense was giving you some problems, the Saints defense will most definitely give you a lot more. And this is in the Dome. It's in their house. Now, the thing that you maybe be able to take advantage of is Drew Brees, because he hasn't been back for that long. And if you make him throw deep, you can maybe stress him a bit. But otherwise, maybe with Kamara being out, that could give you an advantage. But I think Kamara will ultimately play in this game. I do think the Bears have a shot. I don't think it's unrealistic that they can win this game. They just have to really have a nice game plan. I just don't see it happening, honestly. I think their little run here has been a little overrated, and they just sneak into the playoffs because the Cardinals had a late season fold. I'm going to give it to the Saints here, but I do think it'll be like a single-digit win. But otherwise, I think the Saints will take care of this pretty handily. On to the Colts Bills game. Now, I see a lot of people are saying that the Bills are going to wipe the floor with the Colts. I completely disagree with this sentiment. I really do. The Colts, out of the 3 wildcard teams in the AFC, I think are the one that the Bills wanted to face the least. Because that defense on the Colts counteracts what the Bills want to do, which are those huge explosive plays that Josh Allen gets off, and the Colts are able to limit those. And I honestly think that they are going to annoy the hell out of Josh Allen in this game, and I think it's going to be a great litmus test for if he is actually able to perform in the postseason, because we saw him last year and he did not look that good at all. Once the pressure got on him in the second half of that game against the Texans, the Bills could not do anything, and the Texans ultimately came back and won that game. And Josh Allen just kind of folded at the end of that game. But he's a completely different quarterback now, so we really don't know how he's going to look in the postseason. But this Colts team, I think, is going to really test him. And the Colts offense is not something to put down lightly either. Jonathan Taylor has emerged excellently as of late, and Phillip Rivers is playing a lot more comfortably in this offense compared to earlier in the season. So I think the Colts can still put up some points because the Bills' defense isn't something to write home about. It's not a bad defense by any means, but it's not a great one either. So I think this is going to be a really close game, but I do have the Bills coming out of it alive. I'm a believer in the Bills. I think the Bills' offensive firepower will take care of the Colts, but it's going to be a good matchup. I really do. This is going to be one of the games I really want to watch this weekend. On to the Rams versus the Seahawks. Now, Seattle's defense is playing much better as of late. Early in the season, they were on pace to be one of the worst passing defenses of all time. Like, it was horrible. But as of late, with Jamal Adams playing much better, they've gotten much more competent, to say the least. And they also added Carlos Dunlap, who's been a really good addition to that pass rush. Now, the thing is that their defense has gotten better, but their offense has suffered as of late because Russell Wilson just looks super uncomfortable out there, and he completely drops himself out of the MVP race like he typically does. And I don't know what's up with him. I really don't. And it's kind of making me uncomfortable, with this Seahawks team. You see, the Rams' defensive matchup against Seattle is absolutely perfect, if you ask me. The weakness on Seattle's offense is the interior of that offensive line. It is a complete joke. And you know who the Rams have? They have Aaron freaking Donald, the defensive player of the year, if you ask me. So he's going to game wreck that. DK Metcalf, a huge-bodied physical receiver. The Rams have the perfect corner to counter DK with Jalen Ramsey, and he has countered him excellently in the matchups they've had this season when they have played, and Ramsey is matched up on DK. And the Rams also have other corners and secondary pieces that can take away the lanes that Russ has. And honestly, it's just going to come down to if Jared Goff plays. And it's sounding like he's going to play. And I honestly think if he doesn't get that surgery, I think he wouldn't play. But since he got it immediately after the game, I think they're going to have him play in this game. I'm just going to go off that precipice. And reason being is I'm also not a big believer in the Seahawks in general. So take that as you will, but I'm picking the Rams. I love this matchup for their defense, and their offense has shown that they can perform against the Seahawks. And I know they got stressed a bit in their last matchup, but I think Sean McVay will come out on top in this next matchup. Now we have the Cleveland Browns versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one is kind of straightforward for me. The Browns and Steelers just played in Week 17, believe it or not, and Pittsburgh was sitting everyone. They were sitting all their starters. Mason Rudolph almost won this game for the Steelers. And the Steelers' defense with their second stringers was really actually going to work. And they did lose Bud Dupree, but Alex Highsmith has filled in very excellently into that role. And honestly, they're probably not going to pay Dupree because of that. And just because you just saw the Browns struggle against the Steelers and nearly lose the game with Mason Rudolph and all these second stringers playing, and also the fact that Kevin Stefanski isn't even going to coach this game, which sucks because it's the first time the Browns have made the playoffs in nearly 2 decades, but they lose their coach. I have Pittsburgh winning this by double digits. I don't really need to talk much more about this. Sorry, Cleveland. This is just a really shitty situation for you, but you had a great season. On to Tampa Bay versus the Washington football team. I don't really need to dive deep into this one. I have Tampa Bay winning this game. Tampa Bay is getting hot at the right time. I will say this, Washington's defense can cause Tampa some problems on offense. They are the kind of defense that does stress Tom Brady, because if you can get pressure on that man, he is not going to be comfortable at all. And you know what Washington has? The best defensive line in the NFL. So they can get to Brady and they can annoy the hell out of him and limit their scoring output. But then you go the other side of the ball. And Washington's offense is the worst in the playoffs. I'm sorry, Kurt, but it is. I just don't see Washington scoring a lot of points in this game. I do think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think Tampa is going to score around 20 or less, and I think Washington will be at around like 7-13, something in that range. But this is going to be a really ugly game. It's just going to be, but I think Tampa Bay will come out on top. Baltimore, Tennessee. Now, this is the game of the weekend. It's 100% the game of the weekend. These two teams have a little mini rivalry going on. If you guys didn't know, last year, the Ravens were the 1 seed, 14-2, and they got absolutely demolished by Derrick Henry and the Titans in the playoffs. And this year they played again earlier in the season and they lost in overtime to the Titans as well. If you're going based on history, you would pick the Titans. And the Titans offense this year has been very special. It's been excellent. I think they're the number 3 scoring offense, if I'm not mistaken, maybe number 2. I know Green Bay is number 1. They maybe jumped Kansas City this week because Kansas City rested their players. But I know they're top 3. Tennessee's offense, I have no qualms with. But Tennessee's defense is atrocious. It's atrocious. You just saw what Green Bay did to them the other week, and they completely ran all over them with their own style. They used their own 250-pound running back on them, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then you face the Texans, and you let that game be close. The Texans are not a good team. They're not. And you let them score over 30 points and almost win that game against you. You had to have a doink go in to win. That heavily concerns me. And Baltimore's offense is rolling. They just ran over 400 yards. And Lamar is looking really good as of late. He's still not a great passer, and that offensive line is injured to shit. And their defense has had some injuries on it as well. But the thing is, if you can limit Derrick Henry, like if you can just limit him and have to have Ryan Tannehill beat you and make this offense one-dimensional, like you saw in the Packers game where they completely limited Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill got really uncomfortable because of their pass rush, and they just went flat. And I'm afraid that this is going to happen again against the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to win this game very handily. The Ravens are getting hot at the right time, and I think they're going to continue in the postseason. This is a big revenge game for them, and I think they're going to mop the floor. Honestly, I think they're going to mop the floor with them. On to the divisional round. So we have a division matchup, which has happened twice already this season, and that's Tampa Bay, New Orleans. All right. This is going to be kind of a cop-out, but if you go based off history where division rivals face off and they've already played twice in the season, one team is 2-0 against the other, I think they have like an over 90, it's a very high 90s win percentage in the playoffs against them. New Orleans just has Tampa's number. They do. And I'm picking the Saints in this game. I think this is going to be much closer than their last 2 battles have been. I don't have anything other to say than I just think the Saints they just know what to do against Tampa. And I think they're going to do it again. Their defense is playing well, and the offense obviously knows what it's doing against this Tampa defense. They have the offensive line to limit the pressure that the Tampa's defense relies on. And Michael Thomas, he's going to be a very big X factor in this postseason run. But otherwise, I think the Saints will win this game. Pittsburgh versus Buffalo. Now, we saw this matchup earlier in the season. I'm going to have the Bills win this game because I just think Pittsburgh doesn't have the corners that can match up with their receiving game. And you absolutely saw that in their last matchup. And I think that's going to continue on into this matchup. Now, I could see a different outcome if Josh Allen does not impress in the first round, but otherwise, I think the Bills will take this one. Rams versus Green Bay. Now, this one is very interesting because I think the Rams defense does match up well against Green Bay in some aspects. You got Jalen Ramsey who can go against Devontae Adams, even though I think Adams is a more technical player than DK Metcalf, so he could cause more problems for Ramsey. And you also have the pressure. If you can pressure Rodgers, you can really annoy this Packers offense. And they also have the corners that can take away maybe these other like no-name weapons that Green Bay has. Well, the thing is, Green Bay's offense has still produced against really damn good defenses like the Colts. The only game that they really sucked at offense in was the Tampa Bay game early on in the season, but that just looks like an anomaly now because so much went wrong in that game, and Aaron Rodgers throwing a pick six, like that is completely uncharacteristic. I think Green Bay's offense will still produce. I don't think it's going to be at the clip that they're doing right now, but I still think they're going to score in like the low 20s or so. Now, the thing is, I don't trust Jared Goff in Lambeau. I don't. I really don't, and I don't trust this offensive line. I think Green Bay's defensive line with Kenny Clark and the Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and Rashawn Gary, who's playing out of his mind lately, are going to get at Goff and bother the hell out of him. Jair Alexander is just going to be a problem for Jared Goff. And also, the Green Bay safety play has been so much better, so they can take away those tight ends, which aren't the biggest names. So I think Green Bay will pull this one out, but I do think it's going to be a close game. I do. But I think the difference is I don't trust Jared Goff at Lambeau. I really don't. Baltimore, Kansas City. Man, this one is interesting. We saw this earlier in the season, and Kansas City wiped the floor with Baltimore. And I do think Kansas City has a lot of problems right now, and you've been seeing it late in the season, and them kind of resting their guys right now with all these problems that have been showing up with them is kind of iffy to me. I wasn't a big fan of that. I think they needed the reps because for some reason they just don't look right now. And Baltimore, they're on a hot streak. They could take advantage of this. But ultimately, I'm not counting out on Pat Mahomes. I'm not. So I think the Chiefs will take care of business here. I don't think the Ravens have anyone that can really match up with Travis Kelce. So I think Travis Kelce is going to have a game. And that's really all I have to say on this game. I could see Baltimore winning this game. I really could. If Kansas City's cracks really show even more, I could see it happening. But I do have the Chiefs coming out on top. All right. Green Bay, New Orleans. Another game we saw earlier in the season, and Green Bay did win that one in New Orleans without Devontae Adams or Kenny Clark, who are two huge players for the Packers. And also, the Saints were without Michael Thomas, so that is very much of note. But both those teams were in a pretty level playing field, and Green Bay was rolling on the Saints defense. I think that's going to happen again, honestly. It's really just going to come down to if Drew Brees can play in Lambeau. And with what I've seen from him as of late, with his noodle, I love calling it a noodle arm because it is. He's not looking pretty. Honestly, I don't trust him in the cold. It's the same thing with Jared Goff. I'm going to pick the Packers in this one. It's just home field advantage. That's what it is. And a world of difference when you are the team that has the cold advantage. I think Devontae Adams is going to feast in this matchup against the New Orleans secondary because I think it's kind of an overrated secondary, but otherwise I got Green Bay. Buffalo, Kansas City. Look, guys, as of right now, I'm concerned for the Chiefs. I really am. They've not won a lot of their games very convincingly. They've had a lot of ugly wins. Mahomes has had a hell of a lot of interception luck and turnover luck, and he's dropping back like 10 yards every time. And his offensive line is obviously bothered by that because they don't know what to do with him. And he's taking 30-yard sacks now, and it's just like they're not scoring that well in the red zone either. Their running game isn't spectacular. Honestly, I think the Bills' offense is going to feast. I do. And I think the Bills' defense, it has enough to take care of business with the Chiefs. You got a really good safety tandem in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer is playing fantastic this year. Your linebackers, I think, are very well-rounded. They can take care of that middle of the field. And your corners, even though you don't really have a corner two or a slot corner that you can really rely on, I think the other strengths of your defense can make up for that. And the offensive line of the Chiefs isn't so great that your D-line can still do some work. So honestly, I'm picking the Bills in this one. I am a big believer in this Bills team. I think this is going to be an offensive duel. But I think Kansas City's mistakes that should be mistakes in some of these games that they're playing, I think it's going to come back to bite them at some point because the Bills have looked like the more consistent team as of late. I'm going to ride the hot hand and go with the Bills. So now we have the Super Bowl. Green Bay Packers, Buffalo Bills. This one is fun. This is a really good one. And honestly, these two teams are very similar if you look at it in some ways. These are both offenses that are absolutely rolling, and their defenses I view very similarly. Green Bay's pass rush is better than the Bills' pass rush. They have a lot better edge play, and both teams' run defense is not that good. I give the advantage of linebacker to the Bills. They both have a stud corner one with not so great corner twos or threes. And then both their team's safety play is fantastic right now. Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage are playing great football, as well as Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, like I just said. So their defenses are on pretty even level, because Green Bay's defense has had a resurgence late season with some of these players playing up to the level that we expect them to play at. Like Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage are playing out of their minds. Jair Alexander is having an all-pro season. And then Rashawn Gary, their 12th overall pick from last year, top 10 in pressure rate. He's getting at the quarterback. He's setting the edge excellently. And then you have, Zadarius Smith, who's been great the past 2 years. So Green Bay's defense is coming on at the right time. They are defending the run so much better as of late. Now, the Bills' run game isn't that good at all. So honestly, Green Bay's run defense isn't even that big of an issue in this game, because the Bills' run game isn't that effective in the first place. Green Bay, on the other hand, their run game is very effective, and the Bills could have some issues against guys like Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, or Jamal Williams for that matter, because that Green Bay running back group is deadly. Now, you have Trey White who can match up with Devontae Adams, but honestly, I don't think anyone can guard Devontae Adams as of right now unless you have double teaming going on. I really don't think it's possible. With how the Bills are structured right now, I think Green Bay is able to scheme the rest of their weapons open so that they can capitalize on this Bills defense. Losing Bakhtiari is huge, but the Bills line doesn't scare me enough for the Packers offensive line to be overwhelmed. If the Packers offensive line was going against Tampa Bay, I'd be a lot more afraid, but they're not. They're going against the Bills line. I'm going to go with, you call me a homer, whatever you want. I'm going to go with the MVP in Aaron Rodgers getting a second ring right now. I have a lot of faith in Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers as of right now. I think this defense is getting really good at the right time, and I think they can really do well against this Buffalo Bills team. This is going to be a close-ass game, though. It really is, but I'm going to take Green Bay. Call me a homer if you want. I laid out why I think so. Now, I will say, Stephon Diggs has torched Jair Alexander in the past. This game is not going to be a blowout by any means. It's going to be close. It's going to be so close, and it's going to be a great Super Bowl if it were to happen. But I'm going to go with the vet and Aaron Rodgers. That's that. So what do you guys think of my playoff predictions? Let me know yours in the comments below. I would love to hear them. And is your team in the playoffs? If not, well, we're going to have a ton of draft coverage coming soon in the off season. There's going to be probably weekly mock drafts. There's going to be prospect reports on Fridays, or I don't know. There's some talks of what's going to go on. There's going to be a lot of draft stuff, so stick around for that. And I'm going to keep playoff coverage going, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. Otherwise, I can see a lot happening in this playoffs, and I can see Green Bay getting knocked out second round. I can see the Bills getting knocked out round one. Anything can happen. This season is so weird. Let's just enjoy it while we have it. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.